Alright, nobody likes intros, so I'm gonna get straight to the point. Hollow Knight boss ranking, based off of the Radiant difficulty in godhome. Some of these actually don't have a Radiant version of them, like vanilla Radiance. It's not actually in godhome. Some of these are not in godhome, so I'll try to do my best to determine which place they should go to if they were in godhome. I'm going to be ranking this based off of a couple of different factors. The variability of the moveset, how the arena actually looks, how complex is the arena, and how much stress you are under when you're actually fighting these things. Besides the fact that you die in one hit, the main thing I'm looking for with the complexity is how fast do they move. Are they always forcing you to be on your toes, or are they extremely simple and you don't have to barely think while you fight them? So we're just going to start at the top and move our way down. And starting out with Absrad, come on, let's be real. Like, there's not even a question. And this boss alone, Absrad, took me about 3 months to actually beat on Radiance, which is more than all of these other bosses combined. There is no doubt in my mind that Absrad is the single hardest one, and I don't think anybody else questions that fact. There are 3 different arenas you fight this thing in, and, well, technically 4 if you count the rise from 2 to 3, a separate stage, which I consider it to be because you can die during the transition. It's very easy to do so. This fight is just ridiculous. The amount of movesets that Radiance actually has is pretty ridiculous and crazy. And the fact that you have to constantly be thinking about all these bullets raining around, from the knives to the lasers to the giant wall of light. And in the second phase is even worse. In the first arena, you just have a straight line with 2 edges to fall off of, but in the second arena, you have platforms over a pit that will kill you. And most of the time, you're going to be dodging in the air to avoid knives, you're going to be dodging to avoid the wall of light, and if you're unlucky and you had to use a shade cloak to go through knives, but a wall of light is coming, you have to run away from it while waiting for your cloak to recharge. It's just ridiculous. It took me months to beat Absrad in Radiant difficulty. It's not even a question. Is this the Lost Kin? Or is this Broken Vessel? I'm gonna say this is Lost Kin. He is Lost Kin. It didn't take me that long to beat him. He's not that much different from Broken Vessel, but he's a little quicker with his attacks. I believe when he shakes his head around, he actually throws out more globules. I could be wrong. But I know that it appears that the minions he summons more frequently, which that could be just me looking at things and just seeing things that aren't actually there. I don't know if he actually summons them quicker. I'm gonna say his arena is actually very simple. You cannot die in the arena. It's just a nice flat open area. So there's not much to that. I think I died a few times on him just because he was extremely quick and sometimes could get you off guard. So I would probably put the Lost Kin in C tier. He is kind of dangerous if you let your guard down and if you focus too much on the little minions he summons and you kind of lose track where he is, or if he catches you in the corner. You know, he can kill you. He can kill you. On the other hand, I'm going to just go ahead and put the Broken Vessel down in D just because they have very similar movesets. The Lost Kin is just beats him slightly because of the speed. Breeding Moloch. Arena, again, you can't die to the arena. It's a nice flat open area. It's not that hard. I don't think I died on it at all, and if I did die, it was just because of one little thing that I wasn't paying attention to. It spits out little globules, and if you get too close to it, it swipes at you. I mean, with my charm build that I do, as I always focus on melee, not so much spells, I always have Mark of Mastery and Long Nail. So I actually can't get hit by his side swipes, because the nail range is actually longer than his swipes. So with my particular build, this is extremely easy boss. Would probably put him at E, just because you can die to him if you're extremely greedy or not really paying attention. Yeah, yep, that's where he goes. All right, the Nail Masters. This is basically 2 fights in one. Basically, the first half you just fight one, and then in the second half you have to fight both of them again. These guys, they're all over the place. They each of them have different moves, and sometimes you can't tell which one is which until they start doing their special move. They both don't like being on the same side as you. They like to go to either side of you, one way or the other. And only one attacks at a time, which is good, but there is a downside to that. If one is doing their special attack or an attack that pushes you into the other will start attacking in self-defense, while the other one is still attacking. So there will be so many swings and giant hitboxes around you if you manage to get too close to one of them while the other is attacking. That has killed me many times. These two are not a force to be joked around. They're not joking around when they're fighting you. I've died a handful of times to these guys. I'd say it took me, I had to guess, maybe a few days to actually radiance these guys. Just because I would get frustrated and get too greedy, go in for more swings when I shouldn't, and it ended up being a bad time for me. Do not get frustrated with these guys, because if you get frustrated, you'll make mistakes, and then you'll get even more frustrated. It's a downhill spiral. So I would put these guys, in terms of difficulty, probably into A tier. They are pretty tough in terms of their moveset, but I do believe that other ones in here will overcome them over time. Alright, so the Crystal Guardian. He is not that tough. You know, I give him points, A for effort, but he's not that tough. Moveset, very simple. If you're even slightly complacent, you'll be able to beat him. I don't think I ever died on him at all. He's extremely easy. I would say probably on the same tier as Breeding Bollock, maybe even lower, because sure, he has lasers and everything, but they are stationary, and it's extremely easy to dodge them. Since they are stationary, you have plenty of time to see where the lasers are going before he actually shoots them. So if you basically die during this, you just got greedy. And you should just be a little more patient and you'll win easily. The Enraged... Where is Enraged? Here he is. Enraged Guardian? I mean, he's not that much harder, to be honest. His lasers fire out slightly faster, and he has more health. But I would say probably goes in the high E tier. Just, he's not that much harder than regular Guardian, by any means. Dung Defender. Everybody loves Dung Defender. He's everybody's bro. In terms of Radiance fight, he can be a little bit of a challenge. What really puts him down, though, is the fact that you can do a Descending Dark and pull him out from underground while he's tunneling. That is something that his upgraded version cannot do. You cannot pull the upgraded version out of the ground. His moves are obviously pretty much the same as the White Defender, except he has less dung balls when he flies out of the ground. He moves slower underground, and he does not have the giant wall attacks that the White Defender does. His arena is very simple, it's very flat. He does have a lot of health, though, so if you're not extremely aggressive in fighting him, this fight can kind of be prolonged a little bit. I would say when he goes into his rage phase, quote-unquote, if you can immediately pull him out of it just by Descending Dark on the ground. If you don't do a Descending Dark, he can maybe hit you with some of the times when he flies out of the ground. I would say I probably put him at C. He is pretty intimidating. I would say he's above Broken Vessel, I think. Or Lost Kin, I mean. It's basically because of the fact that he's got a little bit more moves that he can do, a little more things flying around than Lost Kin. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, might as well go to White Defender as well. White Defender, essentially, like I said, just like Dung Defender, except he is quite more versatile, more health, and he cannot be launched out of the ground whatsoever with Descending Dark. That is why I think I'm going to put him at A tier, because once he goes into his rage phase, he's extremely quick and launches out super quick, and actually launches more Dung Balls out when he launches out than regular Dung Defender. He is not anyone to be joked around at all, and I would say he's less... He is not as hard as the Nail Masters, just because if these guys basically have double the health he does, because it's basically 2 boss fights. That's what puts the Nail Masters above White Defender. The White Defender fight wouldn't last very long. If you're competent, you can dodge things really well. This fight could last a lot longer than White Defender, because you have 2 people to deal with and 2 health bars to deplete, so that's basically where I'm putting him. Elder Who, I love this guy. I don't know why, but I just love this boss fight. It's just so satisfying with his rings going down, dodging them. The sound effects in this boss fight is amazing, but we're not talking about sound design. Arena, very flat, very simple. However, his attacks, if you get right underneath a ring of 3 and you don't have the Shade Cloak ready, you could potentially get stuck underneath and take a hit. He himself, I don't believe, has a hitbox. I don't think any of the Dream ones have hitboxes. I could be wrong. But yeah, he's an average fight. Not that hard. He can teleport. He's not very fast moving around. I died to him a few times just because I got in bad positioning and I got hit with rings right underneath like the 3 ring sections. But he's about average though. I would say he's not too bad. I'd probably put him in C tier. Actually, no, I'll put him in D tier. He's not really that hard in the grand scheme of things. Your deaths to him will just be for poor placement. It doesn't have that much health. His moveset is actually very, very simple. He only has like a very few attacks. So I really can't put him any higher than D tier for that reason, even though he's my boy. Alright, False Knight. He's not that hard. The only thing that he's even slightly intimidating about is the rocks that fall during his tantrum. That's pretty much it. Every other attack he has is extremely telegraphed. He's one of the first bosses in the game. I mean, come on, he can't be that hard. So he's probably at the extremely bottom of each tier. He is one of the easiest bosses you can imagine. There's basically nothing to this guy, really. He's got maybe like 3 attacks, and like I said, the rocks maybe might get you if you're not paying attention, but that's really the only thing that'll actually get him. And, the failed champion. Oh man, do I have some words to say about the failed champion. He was one of the first walls I experienced when it came to Radiance fights. He is so much more versatile and much more aggressive than False Knight. He is so lightning fast, and you wouldn't think a big guy like this would be super fast, but he is. He's almost every one of his wave attacks that he sends out are the ultra high ones that require a full jump to get over. Every single one of his attacks actually causes boulders to fall from the ceiling. His jumps actually land a lot quicker, so he can jump around a lot quicker if you're trying to dodge the falling rocks. He could be jumping after you off screen and you don't see it, and you dash right into his hitbox and you die. That has happened to me many, many, many times. And because of that, I am going to put him up here with B tier, just because I wouldn't put him over these guys. He is tough, yes. However, you have to master the fight with him before you can really go and fight any of these guys up here, because the failed champion is a very good intro to multitasking when it comes to fighting these bosses. You have to pay attention to a lot of different things, and this is a great example of where you should start with it. You know, now that I think about it, I might actually put him in A tier. He's pretty tough, and he's a good intro to the harder bosses in the game. It took me a while to beat him. I died quite a bit on him. He was, again, one of my first hurdles. Not quite sure how long it took me, but it did take me significantly longer than anything else in the game. So, yeah, I feel comfortable putting him at the bottom of A tier when it comes to difficulty. I just realized I took a little break and I came back that these two should actually be switched, because this, according to the wiki, is the but this is the false knight and this is failed champion. So yeah, we'll just switch those two around. So now we have Fluke Marm. Fluke Marm, it's a hit and miss. It depends on where you want to fight Fluke Marm. What I typically do is I stay on the sides, attack the sides, and then get underneath, and then use the up spell, the Wailing Souls, or whatever it's called. That does big damage. The main problem with Fluke Marm is the minions that it summons. With Unbreakable Strength, it actually requires 2 hits to destroy each one of these. So you do not want to be overwhelmed with minions. As soon as it summons minions, try to catch it in a spell, or multitask and hit multiple minions, or hit a minion and Fluke Marm at the same time. Just try to get the fight over with as easy as you can. The moveset, this thing almost has like no moves at all, except, you know, spit out minions. It's pretty much the only move it's got. What really sets Fluke Marm apart from, you know, being one of the easiest ones in the game, since it can only summon minions, is the arena. The arena, there are no platforms that you can stand on where you could stand on the ground and just attack it over and over again. You have to jump to actually reach it, which causes the fight to drag on a little bit. And the floor does have a hazard to it. If you get to the very bottom of the floor, there is a damage plane. So if you are, you know, not very conservative with your jumps, then you might actually fall and take a hit. But other than that, Fluke Marm, as long as you're paying attention, it's not that hard. Yeah, I'm going to put him at D tier, just because you have the fact that you have to jump and hit him, and sometimes you might mistime your jump, or you might actually accidentally lose your double jump, and then you have to dash, and then you might miss the platform, then you might fall, and, you know, it's just basically positioning. That's what this guy is. Galian. I love all these dream fights. These dream bosses are amazing, except for one. I'll get into that one later. But Galian is a very fun boss fight. I like Galian. His boss arena, very simple. It's just a flat plane. A lot of these bosses just have flat arenas, which is fine, because their movesets actually complement that. The first round of attacks of his, with his axe swinging around, if you can pay attention to the physics of the axe, you can actually use it to your advantage. If you once you know how the physics works with his axe, you can manipulate that and get some hits in. Halfway through the fight, he will actually summon multiple other blades that fly around the arena, and then you have to deal with them as well. With him flying around constantly, you may or may not have the opportunity to hit him, and then you should just focus on dodging until where he actually comes back and you're able to hit him again. He's about average. He's slightly harder than the other ones because there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to, and he flies around constantly. You may not have an opportunity to hit him, or else it would put yourself in danger. I would probably put him in B tier because I actually lost to him more frequently than Dung Defender. The reason why Dung Defender is so low is, like I said, you're able to pummel him out of the ground, but you're not able to do that with... There's no special thing that Galian has where you're able to counter like that. He's simple, but this simplicity is hard to work around a lot of times just because you are so confined in the arena of his. The arena is actually quite small vertically, so the saw blades will easily be able to bounce up and down and just get in your way a lot. Alright, so now we have God Tamer. God Tamer, basically I think that's just Nail Masters, but not as hard. Basically 2 people you're fighting, only one really attacks at a time, and the rider doesn't have that much varied movesets, and you can essentially just ignore the rider almost the entire fight. It doesn't nearly attack as often as the mount does, so I would concentrate on focusing on the rider or on the mount, because if you actually defeat the mount before the rider, then the rider will actually collapse and give up. So that's what makes it easier than the Nailmasters, because if you destroy the rider first, then the mount will still be attacking you. If you destroy the mount first, then the rider gives up and you win the fight. So I would put them probably in B tier, above Dung Defender, just because there's 2 enemies to fight, and generally you won't really die too much from the rider. You will die a few times to the mount, but not so much. Didn't take me too long to beat this fight. Alright, now we got Gorb. Gorb, he's pretty fun. Basically, not very much variability in terms of moveset. Really, the only thing that is quite difficult with this particular boss is the fact that, well, she can teleport sometimes, but not very often. And you can tell how far along the fight is progressing based off of how many knives it actually shoots out during the fight. The arena, I think, is the main challenge, because there is, I believe, 2 or 3 platforms. I don't recall exactly how many there are, but there are not very many, and everywhere else is actually a hitbox that could damage you and end your game. So I would say, all in all, the arena is really the only more challenging thing about Gorb. Probably going to put it at D tier, underneath Flukmarm, just because the attacks are a lot easier to dodge, and but I can't put him on the E tier because the arena is actually kind of hard to maneuver around sometimes, especially if you get bad positioning with an attack. The attack might cover both escape options, and sometimes you might have to use your Shade Cloak and you have it used up and another knife is coming at you and there's nothing you can do about it. Positioning again is key with this one, but all in all it's not that hard. Sly. Oh boy, Sly. Tiny hitbox. Very tiny hitbox. As you can tell, his moveset is crazy. He is extremely active. He will not stop being aggressive. It is 100% the entire fight, and there is no stopping this guy once he starts. The arena is very simple, but his moveset completely just overshadows the simplicity of the arena. When you get him to his enraged phase where he's jumping around, you have to really pay attention to how many times he jumps, and pay attention to when he's going to shoot after you and actually use his nail for an attack. Because his damage hitboxes are crazy ridiculous, and you could very easily get caught up in his aggressiveness. I have died to him quite a number of times. It took me a while. It actually took me more time to beat Failed Champion than Sly by a landslide. Sly is extremely tough. I would say I actually lost to him more often than the Nailmasters, so I would actually put Sly at the very top of A tier. He is very, very tough boss to fight. Over time, you'll eventually learn his movesets and where not to be, what is safe, what isn't safe. Of course, that applies to every boss, but it's very important to Sly. Positioning is extremely important with him. You always want to keep him on your screen at all times, or else you will lose track of where he is, and he can easily just zoom in from off the screen and attack you. You're unprepared, you can't react to it, and you'll lose your game and you have to try again. So Sly is a very tough boss fight. That's why I'm going to put him at the top of A tier. Oh boy, now we got Big Boy here, Big Zote. Yeah, S tier. Not quite as tough as Radiance, but he's up there. He is just so hard to fight because he's so he's so unorthodox with his attacks. You don't think hitboxes are there when they actually are. He is so unpredictable because his moves are so unorthodox. And not only that, he can summon minions where you have to deal with them, which takes your eye off of him even more, which even when your eyes are on him, it's hard to predict what he's going to be doing. Every single, a lot of his attacks create giant shockwaves, which require full jumps. And if a shockwave is coming at you, you used your double jump and you're falling and you can't jump yet, well, that's it, unless you can shake cloak through it. It took me a long time to beat Great Prince. He's extremely tough. It took me weeks to actually be able to beat him. There are some cheeky things you can do here and there to completely dodge a couple of his attacks, but it's not easy. It's not easy. I had to develop those after hundreds of attempts to try to beat this guy. It was painful, and it was very, very satisfying when I actually managed to beat him. Nowhere near as satisfying as Radiance. I only did that once, and I'm never going to do it again. But it's pretty satisfying if you manage to actually beat Zoe. Alright, now we got Grove's Mother. E-tier. There's actually, you know what? No, high E-tier. I'll explain. Grove's Mother does not have very many moves. 2 to be exact. It has the zigzaggy up and down, where it hits ceiling, floor, ceiling, floor, ceiling, floor, and goes across the screen. Then it just has another attack where it zooms right after you and hits a wall, and then continues to fly around. The only reason why this one is higher than all of the other ones is because of the arena. There are actually pits that you could fall into with spikes, and if you are in bad positioning and you don't, if you shade and actually shade too far, then you could just fall onto a set of spikes and you lose. Very rarely do you actually die by the boss itself. You die more to the arena than the actual boss. Which, the same cannot be said for these guys because their arenas are literally just flat. But yeah. I've died to the arena more often than the actual boss, which is not saying anything because I've only died maybe to the arena twice. These guys I didn't die to them at all. So, Grove's Mother has a slightly higher position than everything else, but yeah, that's basically it. Alright, Hive Knight. I have mixed opinion about Hive Knight. When I first started fighting him, I thought he was the bane of my existence, and no matter what I did, I couldn't actually counter him. But coming back after a while and trying Hollow Knight again, I was able to beat him first try. Radiant fight. And I thought, how? I was struggling on this guy for so long, and now I come back to him and he's just super easy. And I believe it was because I was being too greedy with my attacks. Instead of only doing as many hits as I was safely able to do, 2 or 3 backing off waiting for an attack, I would just go in, guns blazing and swinging constantly, and I wouldn't pay attention to his attacks and I would die. I'd get frustrated, it would happen more and more. Coming back after, beating Radiance and Pure Vessel and all that stuff, he's not that hard. All things considered, he is a lot harder than all of these, just because he's able to teleport, and when he summons the bees, they have homing capabilities, so you have to pay attention to the bees. And if you're really unlucky, he will do the, exploding spike things that go in a bunch of different directions while the bees are falling, and that is the most dangerous point of him, because then you have so many bullets to dodge, and he will be ready to do an attack right after all that ends, so you have to be on your toes constantly. With the Hive Knight, I would say I would put him at the bottom of B. He is harder than Dung Defender, but if you're patient and you attack only when you're safely able to attack, then you should be fine with him. Mark 1 Hornet. It's not really designed to be a super hard boss fight. This is the first time you fight Hornet in Green Path, and she's not supposed to be super hard. Early game area, since the arena is flat after all, moveset is basically the same as her Mark II version, but slower, and she doesn't have the spike traps at the very end. Just an okay fight. It's nothing really much to it. She is very agile, jumps around a lot. That might catch you off guard sometimes, or she has aerial moves. She's very agile, jumps around all the time. I would say I'd probably put her at bottom of C. She is a fairly easy fight, but not too easy, like these other ones down here. But yeah, that's where I'd probably put Hornet. Mark 1. Mark 2 Hornet, on the other hand, is basically everything she is, but better, and she has a few extra moves. Extremely fast and agile. Arena is still the same, except she also has more health as well. Her attacks come out faster. You have a lot less reaction time than Mark 1 Hornet. I did die to her a few times. She's a bit tough. Although I did, surprisingly enough, I didn't die to Mark II Hornet nearly as much as I did with Hive Knight or Galeon or any of these guys. I actually beat her fairly quickly because I was so used to Mark I Hornet's moveset. So I'm kind of biased in this sense. So I'm probably going to put her up in B tier. Probably, I would say, strictly, in terms of difficulty, I'll put her above Hive Knight. I think, because like I said, I think the only reason I lost to Hive Knight so much is because I got greedy. And I think I learned my lesson when I started fighting Hornet 2, and that's why I think I beat her quicker than Hive Knight, but I think she probably deserves to be there. Below Galeon, only because... below these two, because there's a lot more to deal with these two. Multiple things to consider. Here, not so much. It's only just one opponent. She does have those spike balls at the very end, but you can easily just bat them away with your nail. And 9 times out of 10, they're not even in the way of your attacks most times. You just have to pay attention to where they are. But yeah, it should be pretty okay. It's a pretty okay fight. They're pretty satisfying to win. Mantis Lords, one of the best fights in the game. I love fighting the Mantis Lords. It's a very satisfying fight. Sometimes I'll load up Hollow Knight in particular just to do Sisters of Battle, but we'll get to those later. This is an extremely satisfying fight. Now, in terms of difficulty, the arena is very simple. There is a spike pit on the left and right of the arena. Initially, only one Mantis Lord comes out to fight you, so that way you know the moveset, and when the 2 Mantis Lords comes out after beating the first one, then you have 2 of them to deal with, and they normally work in tandem with each other to try to really put you off guard in a lot of situations. Moveset is very variable. They are pretty quick, but not too quick to where it seems unfair. And they don't attack in a way that leaves you completely exposed for a hit. There's always a counter for every single attack. It's like a dance. That's how I like to put it. I would probably put Mantis Lords at C tier. Probably above... I did die to them a few times, just because I got in very bad positioning at the edges of the arena, didn't have a Shade Cloak, and 1-2 combo ended up actually causing me to get hit. Because I know that Lost Kin is just... it's so sad seeing him so low, but it's just so true, though. He doesn't have very much in terms of moveset. But Mantis Lords, that's probably where I'd put them. Yeah. Just because, obviously, when I get the Sisters of Battle, they're going to be much higher. But Mantis Lords by themselves, pretty good fight, very satisfying. Oh my god, Morkoth. Oh, I hate this guy. Oh, I hate him. He is an S tier immediately. I hate Morkoth so much. This was the second longest fight besides Absrad. This took me so long to beat. It took me so long to beat, it's not even funny. He was the bane of my existence. He has a very simple moveset. Just fly around and shoot blades at you wherever you go. Not very, he has a shield that, you know, flips around him and stuff, but that's not here nor there. The arena combined with his attacks is absolutely it's so bad. The arena is so bad. It's just floating platforms above a pit of death. And if you accidentally do the wrong Shade Cloak at the wrong area and you start falling into that pit, you just kiss your ass goodbye, start it again. It took me about a month probably to beat Morkoth. He was so bad. Oh, it's such a bad... I will never fight him on Radiance again. I got so frustrated with him. It took me so long. It wasn't even satisfying to beat him at the end either, just because he's that annoying. Absrad was super satisfying to beat, but Morkoth was not. I did not like fighting Morkoth. He is 100% up in S tier. And he took longer than even Pure Vessel and Nightmare King. I'm not even kidding. He was even harder than those two. So he firmly sets his position up in S tier. Alright, so now Marmu. Very simple arena. It's very flat. It is very fast, though. Marmu is very, very quick. I would say if you have the charm configuration like I did with Mark of Mastery and Longnail, you are much, much easier to actually hit him and like ping pong him around. Other than that, though, he's not that hard as long as you just pay attention. I would probably put him at yeah, I'd say probably at the bottom of D tier, just because all you have to do is it's timing your hits, and it's not. The only problem Marmu actually has is if he teleports, which kind of throws him off a little bit with, you know, your timing on your hits, but that's pretty much it. There's really not much to him. That's pretty much it. Massive Moss Charger, F tier. Let's be real. It is the easiest boss in the game, hands down. In Godhome, if you die to Massive Moss Charger, it's literally just a meme, or you die to his jump. If you have Quick Nail or Quick Slash and Mark of Pride and Long Nail, or Mark of Mastery or Mark of Pride, whatever it's called, and you attack him during his charge, you win. If he starts charging at you, you just immediately win. If he jumps, you might die, but it's very easy to dodge. Boring arena, it's very flat. Boring boss, 0 movesets. He's not that... I mean, you could potentially die to him. He does have a hitbox, so you can actually die to him. But that's pretty much it. There's nothing to this boss. Nightmare King. Oh, it's my favorite boss fight in the game. I love everything with Nightmare King. Goes in S tier immediately underneath Prince Zote. Amazing boss fight. It can go on for a while though. He has a lot of health. However, each one of his attacks has a counter, and it's a pretty obvious counter once you actually get to know it. His attacks don't come out too quick to where they're unfair, but they are very, very fast. He has, I think it goes into his pufferfish mode like 4 or 5 times throughout the course of the fight, and the fireballs that come out of this attack are extremely fast, much faster than the original. And that could catch you off guard sometimes. Took me a little while to beat Nightmare King. Not as many as these two up here. I'd say probably took me about... maybe 2 weeks or so, or maybe a week. I don't remember. I did die to him quite a bit though, and I definitely did not beat him in one day. Definitely took me a while with Nightmare King. Great boss fight. It's my favorite in the game, and he definitely deserves the rank of S tier. No Eyes. The hardest thing about No Eyes is the arena. As you damage No Eyes more and more, the fight starts getting harder and harder just because more and more ghosts spawn, and they actually get faster. She teleports very frequently, so you might actually be jumping to her to attack her, and she'll just be gone by the time you will be able to get there to attack her. But besides that, it's a pretty straightforward fight. Just watch where you're jumping. Make sure to dodge the ghosts. There's a couple of strategies you can do with this one. You could just stay on one platform and just avoid the ghosts that try to come after you, because she'll eventually teleport above the platform you're at some point, and then you can just hit her there. Or if you want to be super aggressive, you can go after her, but then you gotta make sure to watch the arena and the ghosts as you jump after her and stuff. So it is kind of hectic if you're super aggressive, but you play a more passive playstyle, then it's not that difficult. I'm gonna put her in C. Probably above Hornet. You know what? Actually, above Lost Kid as well. Just because of her arena is more complex than Lost Kid. Now, Nosk. I love this boss fight. They really catch the ambience of Nosk to a T. This is such a creepy fight that honestly, the creepiness factor alone is probably intimidating enough to throw you off. His attacks, especially when, you know, jumping into the ceiling and all of the ooze just drops on the floor, and it actually lingers in the floor for a while. And you have to deal with that while Nosk running around. The arena is not as simple as you think it would be. There's a raised platform in the middle. So I would say, all in all though, like I said, every attack has a counter if you're in the proper positioning. I would say he's probably a good middle of the road boss fight. I did die to him a few times just because I was in bad positioning. So I would probably put him above Hornet, but below Lost Ken, because the Lost Ken I think is faster, and he can get you off guard a lot more than Lost Ken. Oblobbles, oh my gosh, I about hate these guys as much as I hate Markoth. It depends on the way that you go about fighting Oblobbles. I'm just gonna say right now they're probably gonna go into I'd say bottom of A tier. I actually would. We're right behind the failed champion. The reason why is I hate bullet hell. I really hate it. And being stuck in between both of these guys while they're firing at the same time, there is just so many projectiles to dodge, and sometimes the background of the arena is also orange, so sometimes, rarely, you could actually lose the projectiles to the background and forget where they are, and they could come back around and hit you. So it's extremely frustrating to fight these guys a lot of the time. What I typically do is I attack one and keep track of how many times I attack one, then move to the other one and attack that one the same amount as well, because you want to get both of them to die at the exact same time, because if you kill one, the other one becomes super enraged, flies around really quick, and actually has a higher attack rate than both of them at the same time. It attacks very frequently, and the projectiles it spits out are actually extremely fast. It fires off like a machine gun out of that thing, and it's extremely fast, hard to dodge, so I just recommend sticking with two of them with slow projectiles and killing them both at the same time. It's a lot easier than just fighting one, trust me. So now we've got Sheo, Paintmaster. I like this boss. He's pretty chill. He basically has a couple different attacks. You can tell which attack he's going to do based on the color of his paintbrush. A lot of them are fairly easy to dodge, but they could catch you off guard with how quick they can be. Especially the red one where he shoots a spear, a really long-range spear, directly in front of him. That one is extremely hard to dodge if you don't see it coming, because it comes out almost instantly. He's pretty tough. I lost to him a few times. I would probably put him above Hornet 2. Actually, no, I'll put him up here, behind Galeon. He is hard, but I'd say Galeon still beats him out in the sense that I just have a hard time with like multiple things on screen and hitboxes, and Galeon, that's why he beats out everybody else. But you know, with the variable attacks he has and the fact that he moves around pretty quickly, he can catch you off guard sometimes. Oh, Pure Vessel. Oh, Pure Vessel. He's an S tier. He's above Nightmare King. He was a lot harder for me than Nightmare King, but believe it or not, he didn't take me near as long as Great Prince. I love fighting Pure Vessel. I love fighting the Pure Vessel. Such a fun fight. The arena is very simple. It's just flat. Nothing really much to see there. His attacks is what makes this shine. His attacks are very fun to dodge and counter. Each attack has a proper counter. They are very quick, though. You have to be very quick on your feet. He teleports a lot. And if he is actually off the screen, you're basically dead. You have to keep him on screen at all times. Never let him leave your screen sight, because if you do, you are in for a bad time. He's extremely quick. Very fun fight overall. It took me a while to beat him, relative to everything else. But again, it took me longer to beat him than King Grim, but it didn't take as long as Great Prince Soap. Now this one, Radiance. Radiance is not in Godhome. Absrad is, but Radiance is not. I would say Vanilla Radiance. If I had to put Vanilla Radiance on this tier list, it would probably be... behind Sly. Because the projectiles are pretty slow. The attacks that normal Radiance does doesn't really combine together in unison. Like, Absrad will throw 3 attacks out at the exact same time. You have to just dodge all of them, but Radiance really doesn't do that all that much. At most, you might have 2 attacks to dodge, but that is not very common. Also, she doesn't even have a third phase. Her third phase is literally 1 hit, and then you just beat her. Absrad, you actually have a third phase. When you're in the third phase in Radiant Absrad, your heart is about to explode out of your chest. It's such an easy phase 3, but after going through first and second phases, I've died on phase 3 countless times because my nerves would get to me and I would just freak out that I was actually at phase 3 and then end up dying and cry. So, but regular Radiance though, just 1 hit, you're done. And yeah, it's not that hard of a boss fight, all things considered. If you're able to beat these guys on Radiance, then normal Radiance just seems like a pushover compared to these guys. Oh man, Sisters of Battle. It's one of my favorite fights, up there with King Grim. The arena is the exact same as Mantis Lords, and the first phase is actually the same as Mantis Lords. Second phase, all 3 of them come out and attack you, and their attacks are quicker than Mark II Mantis Lords, or Phase 2. Sisters of Battle, extremely fun fight. Again, like I said, it's just a dance and reaction times and stuff. I love fights that are just basically attack and then counter, attack and then counter, react, react, counter. And it's basically like a rhythm game with Sisters of Battle. It's super, super fun. In terms of how many times I lost to them, believe it or not that many. I didn't lose very often to Sisters of Battle just because of the fight itself and how it's choreographed and everything. It's so much fun. So, all of that considered, where would I put Sisters of Battle? I would probably put them at the very top of B tier. Above Galeon, I died to them more than Galeon, but I did not die to them as much as Oblobbles. So, yeah, I would put them there. In terms of fun factor, they'd be in S tier immediately, but in terms of difficulty, that's probably where they would be. Now, is this Soul Tyrant? Yeah, I think this is Soul Tyrant. That's Soul Master. Soul Tyrant is actually the easiest Dream boss in the game, I think. However, he's the easiest if you decide to fight him after the harder, quote-unquote, fights. If I had a lot of trouble with him because he was the very first Dream fight I actually fought, and I had no experience with any other Dream fight. Well, excluding, the obvious Dream fight. I'm talking about Dream fights with, like, bosses and stuff. Like, Failed Champion, stuff like that. I would say I lost to him frequently because of, again, it's the bullet hells and the dodging, and his attacks are... his actual teleport above you and then slam down attack is pretty quick. Sometimes you might not have enough time to react to it. Let's see, where would I actually put Soul Tyrant? I would probably put him... do I want to put him in B tier? Yeah, I'll probably put him in B tier, but below Hornet 2. Hornet 2, I think, is more difficult than the Soul Tyrant just because he doesn't have that much health. The fight ends pretty quickly if you're aggressive and you can manage to dodge him. Doesn't last very long. Soul Master, basically a Soul Tyrant but worse. He's not that hard. Attacks are pretty easy to dodge. He's really not that dangerous. Kind of just unimpressive all around. But just because he has projectiles that you have to dodge around, I'd probably put him past Marmu, but before Gorb. he's really not that hard. He's extremely easy. I'm pretty sure I lost more to Gore based off of Arena alone. His Arena doesn't have any hitboxes on it, it's just a flat arena. So I'm probably gonna put him below Gore. I had to look up what this guy's name was, because like, is he an actual boss? Or is he like a mini boss? Like I don't get this. Like he's not that hard. He's basically Soul Master, but even weaker. He doesn't have very many attacks. He does have the ability to teleport, so I'll give him that. He's just not hard. He's not that hard. He's not that quick. He just shuffles around when he's not teleporting. He has to go in E tier. He's not any easier than he's so easy, but he's not harder than these guys because these guys actually have something. He just doesn't have anything. There's very little for him to go off of. The Collector, ooh, this is a creepy fight. I think what puts the Collector, okay, so here's a hot take. The Collector, I think, is pretty tough, only in the sense that when you hit him, he actually doesn't give you soul. So you can't cast spells to make the fight quicker. Of course, you can't heal because it's a radiant fight, but spells can do a lot of damage. But you can't rack up soul on him because he's made of void. So when you hit him, you actually don't gain soul. So that actually puts him above a lot of these bosses. His main attacks really are only summoning minions, but the way he summons minions itself is an attack. So if a jar falls on you, or if you collide with the jar as it's falling, that's considered a hit. He actually can summon primal aspids, which itself is a boss. It took me a little bit to beat him. But all things considered, if you have unbreakable strength, you're able to kill the minions fairly quickly, and they won't really rack up with you all that much. So I'm probably gonna put him... Oh, man. This is tough. I don't know where to put the Collector. I haven't fought him in so long. I'll put him in C tier. Because, again, the minions that he summons can be killed fairly quickly. And besides summoning the minions and hopping around, that's pretty much all he does. There's not much else that he does besides that. So, and his arena is just a flat space. So I'm just going to go with that. The Hollow Knight is essentially pure Vessel, except with infection attacks. Of course, this being a base game final boss, and especially the boss right before Vanilla Radiance, it's not supposed to be super tough. It's supposed to be challenging, but it's not supposed to be extremely difficult because, you know, you have to beat him to get back into Radiance. So they kind of expected you to die to Radiance a lot, so they didn't want the boss beforehand to be too difficult. With that said, his attacks are very easy to dodge. It is one opponent after all. So I would probably put him above. Yeah, probably right there in terms of difficulty. Below Sheo and above the Coliseum dudes. I keep forgetting their name. But yeah, that seems to be a good place to put him. Arena's flat, basically the same moveset as Pure Vessel, but a lot slower, less health, and it's a fight that preludes to the Radiance. If you combined, technically these two combined together are just one very long extended boss fight. So if I could combine these two and then rank them that way, I would, and it would probably be an A tier, because it's the end game true final boss for the story, and then I would probably rank him in A tier somewhere if that was the case. But separate, definitely Radiance is above Hollow Knight, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, Trader Lord. Pre-patch, I would say Trader Lord is extremely easy. Post-patch, with his attacks that come out a lot quicker. He's a force to be reckoned with, and his force wave attacks that are similar to the Dung Defenders, they're pretty tough to dodge. He can be very quick. If you run away from him off screen, he will very quickly close the gap on you and do another attack. He has those long-range scythe throws as well, kind of like the Mantis Lords have. So he has a lot of attacks, both up close and far away. He's pretty quick. I did die to him a few times, but solely based off of the his arena is flat. That's the one thing that kind of puts him below. The arena is pretty boring. I am probably going to put him at the top of B tier. He is, in my opinion, not as hard as Oblobble, because again, it's one opponent. And if you keep him on screen instead of running away, then he's pretty manageable. You don't want to be running away from him, because like I said, he's got a counter to everything you do. Alright, we got good old OG Grim. I don't think this was intended to be a super hard fight. He has the same, a lot of the same attacks as Nightmare King, but slower, less health, and he goes into pufferfish mode less. And when he's in pufferfish mode, the fireballs that he throws out are a lot slower. You can dodge them fairly easy, and I believe he actually stays in pufferfish mode less than Nightmare King. I could be wrong there, but I didn't actually. I haven't died to him very often. The only time I did was bad positioning and bad timing, and then once I got the timings down, it was a fairly easy fight. So I would probably put him... it's a great fight, don't get me wrong, but in terms of Radiance difficulty, I beat him fairly quickly. So I'd put him in top C tier. He is harder than regular Dung Defender. But again, his attacks... So my reasoning behind putting him in C tier and not in front of the Hive Knight is because Hive Knight's attacks can actually combine very rarely, which will cause your life some hell. But Grimm's is only one at a time. So he will never actually do two attacks at once. The only time that will ever happen is for a split second when he attacks after his pufferfish. And the fireballs are still on screen for like half a second, but that's pretty much it, so it's not that hard. Umu, I mean, Umu is a gimmick fight. I mean, in the main story, I would have put it a lot lower, but in the godhome version where you have to, hit the, where you have to actually hit the jellyfish into it to kill it, it has extremely low health, which I'll give it that. You only really have to launch the jellyfish into it a couple of times before you deal enough damage to it to actually kill it. The arena, I think, primarily is what puts Umu in the difficult zone, just because it's floating platforms, they're very small, and the floor is just nothing but acid. Umu has gigantic electric AoE attacks, and it also has that one attack where lightning follows you around, so you can't backtrack. Sometimes that can push you in a corner, and then you have to, do some pretty dangerous maneuvers to get around it. Basically, how quick this boss is basically an RNG boss, because it just determines when it decides to spawn jellyfish so you can attack it. And sometimes it is really nice and it summons jellyfish all the time. Sometimes it's an asshole and it doesn't summon jellyfish at all. It depends on where you get with the roulette wheel of RNG. But all things considered, it's mainly the arena that's challenging here. So I would probably put Umu up here with No Eyes for the arena alone. The moveset's not that difficult. The moveset really complements the arena well, I think. A lot better than Markoth does, because the arena, the attacks of Umu are basically in response to the player's actions. So basically, when it does the homing attack only goes where you go. So if you basically put yourself in a position where you get yourself trapped, because the attack only goes where you go, so if you go into a trap zone, that's your fault. So you basically control where that attack goes. So it's not too difficult, but it's not too easy, so yeah, C tier is probably where it goes. Oh, Vengeful King. The only reason why this fight is even somewhat difficult is because there are 2 enemies. The minions that it summons goes down in 1 hit. Very rarely do the minions ever even have anything to do with the fight. Initially, they're actually synchronized, but once the fight goes on, they will quickly become desynchronized, and then it becomes a little bit more hectic. And the arena is actually not flat. There are open areas on the left and right of the arena that you could fall into and get hurt. So it has a average arena with an average boss fight with 2 different enemies in that boss fight. So it can be a little challenging sometimes. But again, they have low health and their minions very rarely do anything. So I would probably put them at the bottom of D tier. Not quite in E, because the E tier bosses are like completely worthless. The only thing that puts Vengeful King above the other ones is because there's 2 of them. That's pretty much it. If it was regular Vengeful King fighting these guys, like just one Vengeful King, they would definitely be down here. But since there's multiple, he goes up here. Alrighty, now we got the Watcher Knights. Everyone's favorite Watcher Knights. Oh boy, I love these guys. Oh, everyone has a lot of things to say about Watcher Knights. This is going to be a hot take. I actually like fighting these guys. This is a DPS battle, plain and simple. If you have the DPS potential, this fight can be over pretty quickly. The problem with these guys is if you don't kill them quickly, they will overwhelm you. So you have to have a pretty good DPS build, whether that be spells or nail, like me. Then you can kill them pretty quickly. Typically, you can kill one before the next one spawns, if you're lucky, or at the very least have it close to death before the next one spawns. That would be the most ideal. I did die to them a lot, though. But here's the thing, I enjoyed dying to them because it was a fun fight. Like, if I lost, that means I mistimed it. It was never really bullshit that I died with these guys. My experience with these guys is very unique compared to everyone else because I actually enjoy this fight. This isn't actually as bad as, let's say, Markov or Great Prince Toad, for that matter. I actually like fighting these guys. The arena, though, is flat, which again is boring, but considering their moveset where they roll across the ground, it was kind of required. So I would put these guys above Oblobble, but behind Failed Champion. They are difficult, yes, but I think it's an enjoyable kind of difficult. Oh, Winged Nosk. This is such a sad fight. This could have been so much better. This could have been such a better boss fight, but it wasn't. It's just so bad. It's basically Vengeful King, but just one. And just it goes in D tier, even below Vengeful King, because there's just one. It has more health, sure. It has a few more attacks, but it's basically just Vengeful King with a few droplets of stuff falling on the ground. That's pretty much it. There's nothing else to it. And it's such a sad fight because it's such an interesting thing. It's Hornet and not the Knight. You could have made that so unique and such an awesome fight, but it's just, you had to just make it a Vengeful King clone. I just don't understand it. Then we have Zero. Oh, Zero. The very first dream fight that I actually did. It's pretty entertaining. It's pretty satisfying to dodge his sword swings. Of course, it's not intended to be a super hard fight because I think it's actually expected to be your very first dream fight. But it wasn't that hard, all things considered. He only really has one attack. So, but I mean, halfway through the fight, he does gain extra swords. So, his swords, when they actually fly after you, they actually fly back as well. And the flyback can actually hit you too. So you have to be pretty vigilant when you're fighting him, but other than that, it's not too difficult. I'll probably put him above Nosk, just because Nosk's Nosk's attacks can, or no, I'll put him below Nosk. His attacks can kind of come out of nowhere and just fall straight on you, and you have to react to that. But all of his attacks, you kind of know where it's going to come from. You already have an idea on where his attacks are going to come from, and the fact that they're going to rebound back towards you too. It's an average fight. I'll put it in C tier. And Zote, I mean, come on, he's literally the hardest boss in the game. Like, you know, it's how it took me months to beat. I still have not yet to beat Zote. I have no idea how to beat him. I have no idea why he's even in the game, to be honest. Like, Abdrad was hard enough. I still have not beaten him. Honestly. Like, I have no idea why they decided to put such a creature with that much power in the game. Honestly, I wish there was a way to remove him, because he is literally preventing my 100% game completion right now. But anyway, yep, that's my tier list. Of course, this is all personal preference. So if you disagree, that's fine. And this is also based off of a melee-only charm build, so this might be a bit different if it's spell-oriented or summon-oriented or different build types, but this is basically my tier list based off of melee charms. Alright, well, that's pretty much it, and I gotta think of another idea for the next video, so I'll catch you guys later. See you!